guest is someone who has spent over 17 years of experience leading technology teams across London, Europe, the Middle East, and beyond, attending TED events in more than 80 countries and building a truly global perspective on what transformation actually takes. Today, he is the co-founder of CloudMox and serves as a CTO as a service through FCT Global, helping C-suites leaders turn complex business challenges into AI-powered transformation programs. Welcome to the Executive Outlook.
Thank you, Isha. Pleasure to be here. Let me introduce myself. So I've started 13 years within IT, playing for the company firm. Actually, I was playing at home. The history is my father bought a computer, and the day that the technician installed it, next day my father came home and I brought it into pieces and then start building it myself. And since then, I've kind of built the love for that. At the time, I didn't think that was going to be a profession or anything like that. But through my career, I've lived in UK for about 17 years. I've worked a few companies, as you mentioned, Rackspace, UK Cloud, Cardonet, micromining companies that are big in the marketing there. Led teams across few countries as well. And yeah, built my career over at IT. And as I said, starting at 13, and I've never left IT my entire life. So here I am. Today I have 4 or 5 companies in Brazil. I'm evolving myself, and some of them I'm just part of the board, but it's still part of my portfolio of companies that I run today.
Okay, all right. How you came into the professional environment in the world of technology?
So basically, I was 13 years old. My father did that and bought that. As I said, that was not something that I planned in my life at the time. But again, my father is a civil engineer, so I grew in an environment where solving problems was always the thing that kept us moving. It was me and 3 other brothers. One of them is accountant today. Another one is in the financial market. Today is a manager from a financial market. He has been in a few countries as well. All my brothers, they've lived outside of Brazil and they're doing well for themselves in these areas. I always felt challenged when I was young. So basically, when I woke up at 6 a.m., I knew all the dollar exchange, all the exchange around the world. I knew all the news and everything. So basically, I woke up to watch TV and see that. And I kept challenging myself to learn more. And hence why I've started going to technology, try to understand things, and to a point where I thought that Brazil wasn't enough for me. And that was the time I started growing. I had my own company when I was 18 years old. And then, of course, we did have financial issues in Brazil. At the time, my father went down a little bit, and then we didn't have money to continue putting to the company and all that. So I've decided, you know what, it's time to try something new. And hence why I've moved to UK. So basically, my entire adult life, I've lived in UK from 20 years old to 38. And that's when we joked a little bit because Vel has repatriated me to Brazil. So they brought me back to working in IT. So basically, here I am. And from that point on, from 2010, when clouds became a thing, then Office 365 and all that, I started evolving with that as well. Then the next couple of years, we've been talking about AI and business transformation and all that. So I've tried to grab that environment as well and get into that level. So basically, I've done pretty much everything. So I've worked from building computers to, as I said, executive roles within big companies as well.
So one of your company is working as a CTO as a service, right? So what
Yeah.
is the current market looks like because of AI, because of other things, what the businesses are looking from a technology perspective in current?
People still think that automation is AI, which is not. People are calling AI what they're doing for automation. So I think there's a big challenge in there for people to understand what's really AI and what's really automation. So there is a need for it. There's definitely a need, and the world is going that way, whether we like it or not. That's the path that we're taking. Although it's still a dangerous thing, people don't know how to use it. We did have few scenarios, especially in Brazil, with laws, judges, and all that, putting things on, even sentence on Chat GPT free and all that. And that became public before the judgment day and all that. So it's a bit complicated to understand that. But I see the business going that way. I get approached by very companies, a lot of companies asking to help them to trace their path, their journey into AI. But you see the C levels not understanding what they can do with AI. So we did have a few plans that we've worked through projects that we've worked for the government, where judges in Brazil, they usually have a lot of process going to place, people sue each other and all that. And there's like 3,000 a day, 4,000 a day, depending on the borough or the town that you sue someone. And there was something that we had to write to help the judge analyze that, be more precise and all this. So we had to get the AI to learn the way that the judge ruled their sentence. And then based on that, AI would learn how they would think, how they have sentenced someone or a process or anything like that. So they kept going. And that was the first thing that we've done with AI that worked really well. And then start working with financial and all that. Something that's bigger than AI, in my opinion, and that never gonna step out, which is the clouds. AI has to run somewhere. And people do see that as the biggest challenge nowadays, especially with the price growing around RAM, disks, storage, and all that. That's being skyrockets for the last few years, last few months. So basically, if you look at the pricing for RAM in November 2025, it was like you could call it, let's make it simple math. You would pay for 32 gigs, something like $100, and nowadays you're paying like $800 for it. So it's ridiculously more expensive because AI is consuming a lot. So the challenge that we have nowadays, and that's where I get pushed a lot, is how do we make money out of the clouds that we already have, and how do we scale with this price change? And of course, there are ways of doing it. You can do that in several ways. You can maximize your resources. You can spread the load. You can do private clouds. So that depends. Each case is a case that we can work on. But basically, AI nowadays and cloud computing, they still the big thing happening in the markets today.
Really nice. So, as a CTO, if you want to suggest an architecture for the organization, so what do you choose? Do you choose on premises, private, or public cloud? So, what is your first preference when you suggest the technology architecture to any company?
If you ask what's my preference, it's always go cloud first. So that's the thing, right? Cloud first, but I would prefer private cloud, but it doesn't work really that way. Depending, each case is a case. For example, when we start a consultants for someone, the first question that we ask, what you're going to run? What's your business? It's about understanding the customer's business. I think the biggest problem that the biggest companies they face nowadays, not the biggest, but the smallest ones as well, it's kind of they have a set of things that they want to sell. It's like creating a product, right? People think of the products, that's a great idea. I'm going to create this product, it's going to sell a lot. Really? Is that going to happen? It's not like that. I usually say, find the customer, then you create the product. And on cloud, it's pretty much the same. You have the customer, you need to understand their needs. Some customers will need to use microservices. You can't replicate microservices in a private cloud on premises or a golden shed cloud, as we call it. You can't do that. But you can have a private cloud and use a hybrid, and you can connect with AWS, you can connect with Azure, GCP, OCI, Alibaba, and all the other hyperscalers that we have in the market. It can be done. So each case is a case. It's about understanding what the customer needs and then trying to design the right architecture for them to attend that demand. And that involves everything, not only the functioning of their application or their database or whatever that is, but also financial. It's the biggest challenge nowadays. If you go AWS, if you go Azure, you still have data egress. And that's something that if you decide to do an architecture with, for example, AWS, what they would do for you is they'll put an architect with you on the call to architect your environments. They'll never touch data egress for you. They'll never say data egress. Data egress sometimes is 3 times more expensive than what you actually spend on hardware, on the environments, on the VMs that you already have. So we had examples of customers leaving private cloud paying $10,000 and then swapping to AWS or any other hyperscalers, and spending like 3.5 times more than they're actually spending, and people returning to private cloud because of that. So that's what we call data repatriation. But again, data repatriation costs a lot as well. And I've seen customers that went so down the path and they've been 2 years trying to take things out from there because they can simply turn off everything and switch. So it's kind of the decision of which product, which clouds should I build? Is that on premises? Is that private clouds? Is that hybrid cloud? Is that hyperscaler? It has to be taught too, because if you don't think it through, it can be a path that is going to be really painful to return.
Yeah. All right. So, one of the case studies in your portfolio is that you took a cloud company in Brazil from 12 million to 56 million reels, right? In just 2.5 years. So, what was key to that growth?
It goes back to what we were talking about before. So it was not only me, of course. We did have at the time the company was growing, and there was a CFO hired at the time. There was a marketing manager hired at the time. But my role in there as a technical director was to bring CTO technical director was to bring their company to the next level. So the first thing that we've looked into, and that's what FCT Global does when we have the CTO as a services. Basically, we help companies on maximizing the revenue, their profits on products. When I say is products that they sell and support, right? So it's about understanding what they sold at the time. So basically, that company had a lot of products and with the minimum sales. So the first thing that I took is it's a simple exercise and anyone can do that is look at the last 12 months about the sales that you lost, right? And that is going to bring you to the magic number and to the magic product. And at the time, we looked at that and there was Microsoft SQL. It was really expensive. So what we did a database as a services. Based on that, we start to improve our offering on dedicated servers, bare metals, right? So, and then we start creating private clouds, and private cloud is where the big boom happens. People wanted to have a cloud, but they didn't know where to start. They had a bunch of servers. They could not connect that, have enterprise storage, manage HCI and all that. So basically what we did is transforming, creating a product from the products that we already have, build your own clouds, and people could tell their customers that they are more professional now. They have their own clouds, they can sell it. And that's how we start to do that. And then eventually the next stage is about understanding the customer. As we said before, we look back at the past, what you've lost, because companies want, I want more customers, I want more customers. But the biggest growth that you can have on customer base, right? Because you have no cost of acquisition. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You look at what you have. Sometimes we start looking at companies that were spending like $200, $300 in the company. And when you look at the size of the company, you see that doesn't match because basically they spend $300 and this company has 5,000 staffs. So something is wrong in there. They're using this technology somewhere else. And that's when we start farming. And then we start farming these companies and start to bring more business from the base that we already have without spending a penny on marketing or anything like that. So these are exercises that can be done as well. And the last formula that we did was bringing architecture, right? So it's sitting down with the customer, understand what their need was. Customers, they pick up the phone, they say to you, I need a server. I want to run a ERP or a SAP environment or whatever they want to call it. I want to run it and just sell me a server. And companies nowadays, they just do the purchase order. They didn't understand what the need of the customer was. And then we decide to take a different approach. And when we decide to do that, that was a game changer because people will start to understand that we understood about the business. And even though our price was not the most attractive at the time, people will still close down business with us. So it's about a whole formula of a bunch of things that you can make the difference.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. So basically, what I have understood is you have taken the data driven approach. You understand their numbers. You understand what it looks like, where it is they are losing money, and then ran a campaign in order to make sure that's structured in a way. So if one thing is the highest selling, why not to double down and get the number right and do more on
Exactly.
that? and understanding the needs where there is no need, cut down the cost from the organization from that perspective.
Exactly. And that's what we specialize today in FCT Global is to deliver that to customers.
Amazing. So, what does a good leadership look like in a technology company?
There's a tech leader thing or a technology leader or whatever you want to call it. Leadership is leadership, no matter what field that you're in. I use a lot this example when I talk to customers or to people or whenever I participate on an interview or anything like that. Leadership, it's like love, right? So I'm married. If you ask me, why do you love your wife? I don't know. I think it's a bunch of things that happen that make you love. But can you tell me exact the date that you said I'm in love with her? No, I cannot because it's about a day that she treats me well, a day that she takes me for dinner. It's a day that we go to the beach. There's a day that we go for a nice trip. There's a day that it's a bunch of things that make that love happen. And it's the same with leadership, right? One thing that I say a lot, good morning, how are you? If you're not prepared to stop and listen to that person because sometimes that person wants to talk about their weekends, their kids' football, or whatever that is. They want to talk about. But if you pass by and say, good morning, how are you? They start talking and say, oh, sorry, I'm late for a meeting. Don't bother. Just say good morning. Don't say, how are you? It's pretty much about that. It's listening to their people. And on technologies, it's a bit more complicated about a few things because nowadays we have the millennials. And for us that we are from the old age and let's say that we're the root guys and basically we didn't have this thing that we used to have bean bags and we didn't have this stuff that I want to work from home because I want to have a better life quality and all that. We are different. We want to be in the office. We want to get our hands dirty and all that. And trying to get the grasp of that and try to combine that with the millennials and the old guys is it's very complicated to understand. So it's basically a balance. So you need to understand each one of your team. One thing that I do a lot with my team is basically one-to-ones weekly. People do one-to-ones monthly. I do one-to-one weekly. Of course, there's a monthly review that I'll do it then, but on my one-to-ones, they are forbidden to talk about work. Literally, they are forbidden. We will talk about football. We'll talk about something that they like talking about. They want to play a FIFA video game. Let's go play FIFA video game. I want to go for a beer. Let's go for a beer. And at that moment is for them to do that. And I used to prepare a day for my team. So prepare a day. One day we go karting, gonna play ball or whatever. We used to do something different on that day. And that day was forbidden to talk about work. And then, of course, we did have our monthly reviews. Our monthly reviews, they would bring their worries. And once someone brings their worries and their problems and all that about work, if you don't take action on them and on the next meeting you have no updates, that's it. You lost them. Leadership is about listening, acting, and delivering. These are the three steps that I think that leadership is all about. I would never say to someone on my team, say, listen, there's an upgrade that needs to be done overnight. There's a move on the data center, anything like that, and I'll go to bed and leave them working. Leadership is about being there for them, right? So I don't need to be on the data center, but if I have to, I will be there. If I need to be at the client site, I'll go, I'll be there. But I'll be awake and I'm gonna be available for them. I'll do checks on them. Everything is fine, everything is good. Do you need something? Do you need to escalate something? I'll take the headaches. People say, but hold on, you are C-level. Why do you take things under your umbrella still? I said, because they are my team. If they don't deliver, I'm going to be the one taking the blame. And I can't do that for them. It's wrong. I can't do that for them. But I can help them deliver the results that we need to deliver. Sometimes there's offloading a task that they don't need to take. And then I'll put that task, delegate that task to someone else who have the time to do that. So it's about understanding the needs from your team and trying to get that. But basically, leadership, it's about building a strong relationship with your team member. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. You have put it in very simple terms, and this should be a mindset of every leader, according to me. And your team is your strength. Basically, you cannot do everything alone. So, you should have a strong team with you. And how a strong team built is when you trust them, when you are with them. So, that is very important.
This is something that I say, and people, leaders, I wouldn't say leaders, managers, they think that when they go on holidays, things will fall apart, or if they leave a company, things will fall apart. And that's a big failure. If you go on holidays and things don't work at the company, or if you leave the company, things don't work, you're really a bad manager. So you're not a leader, right? So I used to take my holidays. I used to take four holidays a year, and I didn't have to worry one day about one thing. I would take 30 days off, and no problems. I'll do touch base with them, and they'll just say to me, "Man, just relax." I've never had something happening on my holidays after I started actually acting as a leader a few years ago, and people will just follow. They will just deliver because they don't want you to be upset as well because you're a great leader.
It was very insightful and engaging conversation I had it. Really good perspective on leadership, technology, how we need to see technology from a business perspective. That is important because sometimes people have a fear, oh my god, this is technology, this has to be overcomplicated. But no, it needs to be solving your needs. So that is what you have stated it rightly uh, over the discussion. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much for having me, Isha.
Yeah,
Appreciate your time.
really enjoyed the discussion. Thank you so much.